Welcome back to episode 8 of the Family Only series. Last we left off, the relationship between Jake and Amelia was starting to turn south. They're still married, but it definitely isn't as strong as it used to be. The children are starting to fill out some of the missing skills in the colony. Jensen even managed to make some really good art for the colony. A few of the pieces were custom art pieces for each of the family members. They've started to make steps towards getting honor up, but in the process of collecting tribute for the Empire, they suffered a prison break that almost caused some serious harm to Jake. An extension to the pig pen has been planned in order to scale up how many pigs the family is keeping. They're going to nearly double the size of the pen, but they need more stone to do so. Amelia, Jake, Jensen, and Wallace are all taking part in the project. Jensen and Wallace are hauling in stone, Jake is cutting the stone, and Amelia is building the wall. It's a project that's including almost the entire family. Jensen is up to 4 artistic skill now. It's not amazing, but he's slowly making progress on it. Unfortunately, he's learning a lot more slowly compared to how quickly his brother Wallace has been learning plant skill. Let's check in on what our colonists have been chatting about. Amelia went over boosting morale with Jane. Not long after, it says that Amelia researched boosting morale with Jane. I love the idea that when they first brought up the subject, Amelia hit a wall and realized she didn't actually know what she was talking about, so she was honest with Jane and told her they would research the subject together and they would both learn about it. Turns out Amelia's the mature and responsible parent of the two. Meanwhile, Jake is chatting with Jane about roulette and jackets. Jensen and Amelia shared beliefs on the nature of emotion. For a while, some of these subjects seemed a bit too complex for children, but Jensen is starting to get to the age where it makes sense that they'd be discussing it. I think talking to a child his age about emotion makes a lot of sense. He must be going through a lot while coming of age on a RimWorld, with so many traumatic things going on around him. Then Wallace and Amelia exchange thoughts about the morality of wealth. Well, right as I was saying these topics are starting to make sense, this one pops up. I'm sure there are many situations where it makes sense to discuss the morality of wealth with a child, but I'm not sure this is one of those situations. Except for purely in the abstract, I'm not really sure wealth is relevant to their lives. Maybe they were just bored and need something to talk about. Oh, that's nice. Wallace compared Jensen to a reindeer. Wait, how exactly is that an insult? Reindeer are awesome. The family's been hurting for steel for a while now. Having 3 ship parts crash at the outskirts of the colony is incredibly helpful at this point in time. Hopefully soon the children will have a passion for mining, and they can be set to mine out steel. But until then, they need to collect any steel on the map they possibly can. Plus, the extra components from the ship parts definitely won't hurt. Well, the extra wealth could hurt, but I think it'll be okay. The pig pen extension will be finished soon, and that means this wall is going to be deconstructed next. Instead of just sleeping in the middle of the field, let's move the pigs over toward the door. And maybe eventually we'll build some beds for the pigs. Well, for the named pigs. Okay, the wall is done being built. Now let's get this middle wall torn down. An elephant has decided to join the colony. I have no idea what they're going to do with this thing. I don't think it's a great idea to keep it around in the long term, and I'm honestly not sure if they'd kill the thing just to eat it. That doesn't really sound like this family. At least for now, there's extra space in the pig pen. Let's make sure the roof gets taken off this new section. The next expansion to the base is going to be a new learning center for the children. That can go on the west side of the base. There's space for 2 new rooms over there, but they're just going to build 1 for now. There's still quite a bit of slag on the map. If I don't force them to haul, they don't seem to be working on it very much. Jensen will be 13 relatively soon, and after that, it might make sense to leave him on hauling for a while. Ooh, that is not good. Jensen and Jane are getting into a social fight in the kitchen. Picking on a sibling is one thing, but they were straight up beating each other. Jane is still a toddler, and Jensen is nearly a teenager. That's just awful. Although I have to say, Jane getting melee 1 from the fight is pretty amusing. She learned a thing or two getting into a fist fight with Jensen. I guess that's the silver lining here. Let's measure out the perimeter of the new learning center. It doesn't need to be massive. It just needs to fit the desk, the blackboards, and a few beds for the youngest children. We can let the really young kids sleep here until they're old enough to get their own rooms. Jensen is 11 years old now, and his stats are getting a bit better. He's up to shooting 4 and social 5. As soon as he turns 13 years old, we can take advantage of that social skill and make him the moral guide. They've been getting a pretty bad mood penalty for a while now because they don't have one yet. Meanwhile, Wallace is up to shooting 5 and plants 11. That fast learner is really paying off for the skills that he's been spending time on. Hopefully he can get a solid second trait at the next milestone. Well, the Decay Wasters are at it again. They've sent 7 raiders from the south to strike the colony in the dark of night. I'm not sure how, but the family was alerted immediately, and they've jumped to work. Jake has hopped on the mortar and is going to fire all of the stockpiled shells at them. Well, it's only 2, but still. And they all missed. Well, here they come. Jake and Amelia are going to have to take care of this while the children hide away from all the danger. The first raider really went running for it. We'll have to deal with him later. Another one went face first into the stone trap, so they should be easy to pick off. A quick surprise to the door, and that one is the first to drop. Amelia and Jake pushed out to fire at the only visible raider, but unfortunately, he was a quick shot. Amelia took a hit right through her torso into the kidney. They're going to have to fall back and deal with the bleeding, or this is going to cause some serious issues. Hopefully in the meantime, the raiders don't break through the walls. Okay, Jake stopped the bleeding and they're back in the fight. They managed to catch another raider alone, but little do they know, this lady has hopped up on Goju's. It wasn't until after taking half a dozen bullets and having her leg completely shot off that Jake and Amelia realized she was being kept alive by highly potent chems. A few more hits and she's still not down. They really have to be careful here because Amelia could easily die if she takes any more damage to the torso. Thankfully, they down another raider and retreat back to safety. That crazy lady on Goju's has finally fallen. She was hopping around on one leg for so long. When she fell, it caused the first group to flee, but there's still more raiders looking to fight. Alright, the last 2 raiders are down and the rest are fleeing. That was actually a pretty intense fight and ended up being a little too close for comfort. Hopefully having Jensen at age 13 will help out with the future raids. Otherwise, they'll have to be careful increasing the wealth too much, so the raids don't get much bigger. This is going to be a lot to clean up. When the raids were small, it was enough to just haul them off to the hills where they wouldn't cause too many issues, but trying to pile up this many raiders is going to cause some pretty big problems. So that leaves only a few solutions. They could build a crematorium and burn what's left over from the raid. They could build a burn room, store the stuff inside, then toss a Molotov cocktail in. Or there's a third option. I'm going to go with the third option. Frag grenades. Cleans up any mess. Well, the family didn't get away completely free from that last raid. A flu has struck the colony. In game mechanics terms, the flu is just random, but then again, they did capture a raider literally minutes before everyone became sick with the flu. It seems more reasonable to me that they improperly quarantined the prisoner, and that prisoner brought an illness into the colony. It spread from one person to another until several of them had the flu. Jake, Amelia, and Jensen are all infected. Hopefully herbal medicine alone will be enough for all 3 to get over it. But let's keep a close eye on things just in case. It would be pretty awful to lose a colonist to the flu after all they've been through. Let's make sure the rest of the animal pen is being used to grow food for the animals. I prefer dandelions over hay, since it's less work for the pawns to plant. Hay would be useful for turning into kibble, but for the most part, the colony has a surplus of vegetables that could be used for that purpose. For now, we can turn Jake and Amelia's beds into a medical bed, since they both had the flu anyway. They're about a third of the way through the flu now. Just to be certain that they're going to get over the flu, let's give Jake and Amelia industrial medicine for this tent. Jensen should be okay with herbal, hopefully. After those 10s, it should be safe to switch them back over to herbal. The prisoner also got the flu, but they'll be okay with Doctor's 10 without medicine. Okay, the flu is starting to go away. Amelia's built up an immunity, so let's get her back out to work again. First thing, we need to make sure this wall gets deconstructed before they get to anything else. Then the pig should have plenty of room to grow. Now we can get Jensen back to making art. There's room for at least 2 or 3 more art pieces in the colony. Once the new room gets built, they can put a couple of pieces of art in there too. And just like that, Amelia's pregnant again. I really should have expected this, even back on the default chance to have children. Maybe it's time to start completely avoiding pregnancy. Well, in any case, that doesn't matter now. Another child is on the way. When Amelia and Jake were resting up during the flu, they finally had time to reconnect with each other. They had several deep talks, and it completely reignited their relationship. Both of them are back up to 100 relationship with the other. That's relieving to see, at least. It would have been pretty awkward to see them split up at this point in the run. After all that, they should have learned the lesson after keeping the first broom rat. It happened again. The broom rat hasn't been trained since it joined, so it's gone back to being wild. The pen is pretty packed with pigs, so I'm not sure this will go as smoothly this time around. At least it is raining, so fire isn't much of a concern. Oh, Jensen finished a new sculpture, so let's take a peek at that. This one's called a thirsty tree, which does seem pretty fitting for the arid shrubland. On this piece is a depiction of Decca's Reekscow. being disabled by Jake with a heavy SMG without emotion or expression. Jake looks distressed at what he's doing. Wait, what? A bluff in the distance seems to symbolize failure. Well, nice work, Jensen. I think. Alright, there's a few people who've been asking for it, so let's build some beds for the pigs. For now, 3 beds will do. 1 for each of the named pigs. Pretty soon they can build a couple of medical beds as well. A new work of art has been created by Jensen. Looks like he's going for a much simpler style for this one. It's named Sharp Song, and it bears the image of a nuke. A mallard stands in the distance. I really have no idea how to unpack this one, so let's just store it away and not think too much about it. The Empire has asked for assistance securing a crashing shuttle. 3 honor is definitely worth it at this point. Jake has enough honor to rank up, but it seemed like a better idea to avoid the cost of the higher ranks for now. In the meantime, he's been accumulating more and more honor. Another 3 really sounds good. Well, it turns out this time around, one of the soldiers charging into melee actually worked out really nicely. They only had to down 2, and it sent the rest of the raiders running. That was basically free honor, not to mention the resources the family will get for deconstructing the shuttle. Let's gather all the steel on the map to get a few of these crafting bills finished. Poor Amelia is trying to craft mortar shells while throwing up from morning sickness. That is just awful. I think it's about time we start using other means to create new children, other than forcing Amelia to become pregnant over and over again. It's getting to be a bit too much. Well, the Sholor Accord is trying a new approach. They've launched pods and crash-landed right through the roof. Right through the roof of Jensen's bedroom. I'm not sure if it was a piece of debris or an actual transport pod, but in the process of crashing through the roof, something slammed into Jensen's head and caused some serious damage. The raiders poured into the hallway, only to be met by the gunfire from Jake and Amelia. The first raider really didn't stand a chance and went down immediately. The rest started to flee around the corner. They're trying to be tricky this raid. They seem intent on finding the children and went right for the door they were hiding behind. The raiders couldn't handle the gunfire and changed their minds only to be torn down before they could reach the mini turret. Alright, let's clean this up. Oh, and make sure you don't forget to tend to Jensen's head wound. That thing is pretty severe. The transport pod raid left a massive hole in the roof of Jensen's room, so they're going to need to work on cleaning that up. At least there's plenty of slag the family can smelt down and use for crafting. There's also so many guns that need to be smelted down, and a pile of clothing that they'll have to destroy. Let's get Jake to work on that now. Now we can start working on getting this children's room finished. As I mentioned previously, this room can be used for the children's desk, but can also double as a barracks for newly born children that haven't had the room built yet. I'm not entirely sure what the layout's going to be, and I'm also not entirely sure what kind of carpet is going to look good in here. Let's try a few different things and see what sticks. Maybe pink will fit the child theme. There's not a ton of cloth in the stockpile, so they'll only be able to build a few squares to start with. Amelia has progressed into the second trimester, and she's at least keeping her mood up really high. It's nice to see that she's content with life at the moment. Gleb has had a birthday and he's finally 3 years old. He can join the rest of the children in their chores, which at this point is going to be mostly just cleaning. But an extra set of hands isn't going to hurt. We're going to need to make sure he's able to get some basic clothing. We don't need him running around naked. Unfortunately, it looks like the family forgot to have a lantern party to celebrate. Hopefully they can make it up to him in the future. There's so much in the stockpile that the family won't be using at all. And in general, it's best not to keep anything stored that the colonists won't be using in the near future. Instead of trying to sell it or smelt it down one at a time, one of the pawns can pick it all up using a caravan and drop it in the destroy area. Then it's just a matter of grabbing some frag grenades and cleaning out the stockpile. It's loud, but it works. The clothing that Amelia made for herself and Jake is starting to become quite threadbare. The durability on a lot of it is getting really low. They're going to need replacements soon. And on top of that, Jensen will be an adult in the near future, meaning even more clothing is going to be required. Let's make sure Amelia is actively working on making new clothing. And just as I was saying that, Jensen's birthday occurred. He's 13 years old and is the first of the children to reach adulthood. This is quite a milestone for the family. The colony's been through a lot to get to this point. Up until now, they've had to do everything with only 2 full-grown adult pawns, and now having a third is going to be a massive help. The passions that Jensen has access to offers a lot of different directions to take him. It's really hard to decide. The trade is much easier to decide, absolutely taking super immune. We've got to pick 3 passions. I think medical makes the most sense, since Jake is the only medical skill in the colony. And not only do we need another medical pawn so Jake doesn't have to self-tend, we also need a backup in case something bad happens to him. After that, let's take animals and intellectual. Construction also would have been a good choice, but I'm hoping in the long run we can get construction on Jane. Either way, we definitely need another construction pawn. Now Jensen really needs the clothing Amelia's working on. He lost access to his previous clothing, and we definitely don't need him walking around naked. That would be very awkward. At least there's a duster ready to go. Okay, shirt and pants are ready to go as well. Everything is good now. This time around, Jake and Amelia didn't forget the Lantern Festival. Let's send a few of these off to celebrate Jensen becoming an adult. And obviously, they're also going to use this opportunity to celebrate the birthday of Gleb. That way they didn't forget. Happy birthday to both of you. Oof, unimpressive party. I think the problem here was trying to have 2 birthday parties at once. Never have 2 birthday parties at once. Now that Jensen is an adult, the first thing we need to do is assign him as the moral guide. It's incredibly strange having a 13-year-old boy be the moral head of your ideology, but hey, we're desperate to get rid of this mood penalty. And his skills and traits are almost perfect for a moral guide. I'm sure he'll grow into the role as he gets older. Not only will they no longer be suffering from that mood penalty, but they're finally going to have access to the moral guide abilities. Those could come in very useful in the future. Alright, next up is going to be crafting new armor. Jensen needs a helmet and a flak vest, but the old armor that Jake and Amelia have been wearing is starting to get really low on durability, so those are going to need to be replaced as well. They're going to need quite a bit more steel for this project, but it's an important one, so let's make sure it gets done quickly. As I'm sitting here thinking about how to make the carpet look good, I realize if I'm going to put flammable floors in a room, then I could just as easily put wood floors in. I wouldn't normally put wood floors in, as I tend to prefer non-flammable floors, but for this run, I'm also trying to think about how the family would be decorating the rooms. That being said, I think wood floors would look pretty nice in here. Also, it'll be quite a bit easier since they have a lot more wood than they do cloth. Plus, they're going to need that cloth for Flagfest, so I think it works out really well in the end. Let's do a little wood in the middle, and then surrounded by concrete floors, just to help mitigate the fire risk as much as we can. A bulk goods trader has arrived from the tribe of Betra. They aren't carrying very much that we really need, but they do have a bit of cloth, and they're willing to take a lot of goods that our family either doesn't need or has too much of. Let's sell a few of these pigs, and gird us some of this excess kibble. There's also some low durability clothing and extra dusters that we can get rid of. That will give us quite a bit of silver and a handful of cloth to make those flag vests with. The flu is back again. This time the colony got a bit of a break, since it's only affecting Jane and the prisoner Tanya. Ideally what we want to do here is let Jake tend to Jane and get the highest quality tens possible, and then let Jensen tend to the prisoner to try to maximize medical XP gains. It would be really nice to try to get Jensen as much medical XP per day as possible. That way he can start catching up to Jake in skill level. Jake has had quite a bit of a head start, but if we focus on it, then Jensen should level up pretty quickly here. The learning room is almost finished, so we can start moving the desk and the blackboards over there. The layout doesn't allow for the furniture to be placed in there perfectly, but let's just go with it. Now it just needs a couple lights and a few beds, and we'll be all set. Oh nice, Wallace has made it to his 10th birthday. He's been incredibly useful ever since he got a passion for plan skill and fast learner. Let's see if we can make him even better with this growth moment. The traits don't exactly complement his current jobs very well, but at the same time, we are pretty desperate to get some mining skill in the colony, so that's too tempting to skip. And we may as well throw intellectual in there, since Jensen's already our artist, and melee isn't a great idea for Wallace. Luckily the trait is a pretty easy choice, since tough is the best trait in the game. Happy birthday, Wallace. Amelia has progressed to the 3rd trimester of her pregnancy. The 5th child in the colony should be arriving pretty shortly. After this one, I think we'll set them to avoid pregnancy, and see how that goes. Ideally, we'll start using growth fats from here on out to birth new children. Now we just need to get one built. It would be really nice to also start gene engineering the children to make them even better. One thing at a time though. And not long after the birthday of Wallace, we have the birthday of Jane. It's nice to see so many growth moments happening since every one is pretty impactful with the quality of education they've been getting. Like I mentioned previously, I wanted Jane to get a passion for construction and it worked out perfectly. We can give her construction and even take medical to get ourselves a 3rd doctor. As for trait, kind is good, but iron-willed is even better, so this one's an easy choice. Happy birthday, Jane. Unfortunately, the lantern ritual is still on cooldown, and they don't really have an alternative for birthday celebration, so Jake has decided to give a little speech to commemorate the occasion. It's not quite a birthday party, but it should hold us over until we can have one. We haven't talked much about it until now, but this does give us the opportunity to reform the family's ideology. If we're going to stick with the direction of the story and the theme that has developed so far, then I think transhumanist makes the most sense here. They've been working towards genetic engineering, and the goal is to be growing human babies in vats. And that really screams transhumanist to me. Throw in the fact that it gets rid of the nutrient paste penalty, and then I think we have a clear winner here. Let's also add in a few more rituals so it's a bit easier to have birthday parties with the children aging up so close to one another. The more children there are, the more common of an occurrence this is going to become. Alright, there's our new ideology. That's the end of episode 8. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please give it a thumbs up, make sure you subscribe to the channel for updates on all future videos. For those of you who made it all the way to the end, please consider checking out my Patreon to help support the creation of more videos like this one. You'll find the link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and see you for the next one.